Hello and welcome to my video about the Cobalt family, one of my absolute favorite pigment families. I really love cobalt pigments. So yes, we have cobalt yellow, we have cobalt violets, cobalt cerulean blues, cobalt turquoise, cobalt green and cobalt black. So there is a lot of variation. We have a lot of different colors which can be made from cobalt pigments. So yes, you see 3 empty spots. I have one of them, luckily. I found out surprisingly when I made this video that I really have a cobalt yellow. I didn't know that. But 2 of the pigments I have not. Sorry for my English. It's not my mother language, how you probably can assume from my rambling. But I give my best. But when I make some mistakes, I hope you can forgive me for that. Yes, okay. Then the 2 pigments I don't have are the 2 empty spots on the right side. It's a cobalt blue and a cobalt black. One of those pigments I couldn't find at all. That's the cobalt black one. The pigment black 13, PBK 13, cobalt oxide. Not even someone who makes watercolors by hand on Etsy or somewhere else. I have searched all through the internet. I couldn't find anyone. The cobalt blue 73 cobalt silicate. It's the upper one on the right side. I found someone making them by hand, but it was way too expensive because it was around 20 bucks for a half pan and 20 euros for shipping to Germany, and then I would have to pay tax again as well. And yeah, then I said, okay, that's way too expensive for me. So we will start with the cobalt yellow, also known as aureolin. That's the empty spot on the left. When I decided to make this video month ago, then I thought I don't have an aureolin exactly, but I had 2 dot cards. The one I use now is from Magello Mission Gold. That's one of 2 companies which still offers genuine aureolin pigment yellow 40 or PY40 for short. The other one is Daniel Smith. That are the 2 companies you can still get the real treat. The one I found out I have is from Winsor Newton Professional, because I bought a second-hand set a while ago, and as it is an older one, it still contains a pan with PY40. Yes, so it's one of 2 cobalt pigments which aren't light fast. That's the reason why most companies don't offer it anymore. The most companies offer an aureolin, but they are made from different pigments which look similar but have way better light fastness. So the next one will be the cobalt violet pigments. We have two different pigments. Not many companies offer those because they're really expensive and they don't re-wet very well. So the first one I use is PV14, pigment violet 14, cobalt phosphate. I have one from Mgram. And you see it dropped and made a sad little face because I let it dry for days and then it looked ready enough to close my palette, but as you can see, it wasn't enough. Most of the color dropped on the lower part heavily, not on another color, so I can still use it. Both pigments from violet cobalt pigments are very delicate, very hard to re-wet, so I personally do pre-wet those because I don't pre-wet my paints, but a few pigments which I know are harder to re-wet than I do, and the cobalt violets definitely are one of those. They both granulate, but because because of the colors are so delicate, it's harder to see the granulation. Yeah, the next one is PV49, cobalt ammonium phosphate. And when I remember correctly, that is the one which not many companies offer because it's really, really, really expensive. Or was it the other way around? Oh, I'm not sure. We will talk about that in the video about cobalt violet. I will make a video for each color group. So we will have one video about the cobalt yellow and the cobalt black because there aren't so much companies which offer them and not so much pigment. I put those in one video. Then we will have one video about cobalt violets, then one about cobalt blues, one about cerulean blues, one about turquoise, one about greens. So we will look into each one. I will tell much more information about each pigment in those videos. Also, we will do comparative swatches. I will swatch every color I own from the cobalts. I will use dot cards and pens or tubes, whatever I have, so that we can compare as well, like all cobalt cerulean blues made from pigment blue 35 and how sometimes they look very different from other brands. So you can have the same pigment, the same color, but the shades are very different. So we will do this in each color group video. So as you can see, that the PV14 is much more on the bluer side and the PV49 is much more on the redder side. There are completely different shades of violet. The next pigment I have, that's a pen from someone handmade I bought. It's pigment blue 32 smalt, the genuine smalt. I know some companies, like for example Winsor Newton Professional offers a smalt, but it doesn't contain the original, genuine PB32, because this is the other cobalt pigment, which is not very light fast. Like the PY40, the PB32 also is super not light fast at all. The aureolin gets a really nasty brownish touch, and I think the blue one is fading but also gets a brownish touch. So yeah, you can only buy this pigment from someone who offers handmade paints. So as you can see, now I have a lot of tubes for the next pigment. That would be pigment blue 35, which I'm sure a lot of people know. Not everyone knows that the cerulean blues also are cobalt pigments, because they are mostly offered under the names of of cerulean blue or cerulean blue dark or something like that, and doesn't contain like cobalt violet, the cobalt in its name. So yes, cobalt tin oxide is the PB35, and I personally love that pigment a lot. It's a very beautiful granulating sky blue color. And the next one is the PB36 pigment, cobalt chromium oxide. And these two are both offered under names like cobalt cerulean. It varies from company to company. Some companies offer only the PB35 pigment, and other companies offer only the 36 pigment. And some companies like Daniel Smith, for example, offer both of them. So you will have to look when you buy a pen or a tube of cerulean blue, to look up which pigment it is, because the 35, as you can see, is much lighter in color, and the PB36 is a much darker color. I personally like the 35 more for my cerulean blue. Doesn't mean I don't like the other one, but it's I don't know how to say it, but it for me personally, it feels like a bit of grayish blue more than a vibrant sky blue. So the next one is probably the pigment which is mostly known as cobalt blue, pigment blue 28 cobalt aluminium oxide. I will swatch mine from the Ukrainian company Rosa Gallery. As you can see, I have a tube of that one, but that's probably one of the cobalt pigments which most company really offers. So it's not very hard to get, because mostly all companies offer this one. And I really like cobalt blue. I use it a lot. And yes, there are other cobalt blue pigments as well, but they all have a really completely different shade of blue. The next one we will swatch is the PB72 Cobalt Zinc Aluminate. And the only company I found which offers it is the Polish company Roman Szmal. And as you can see, I have a full pan of it. It's a very beautiful, highly granulating color. But I haven't seen any of the major brands like Schminke or Daniel Smith or what else offer this pigment. probably handmade watercolors, you can find it as well, but so far from the big companies, only Roman Schmal offers it. Like I said, the pigment blue 73, which is would be the next box, will stay empty because the cobalt silicate I didn't found at all. Only this one handmade one, but it was too expensive to buy just for a video to pay like $60 in total for one single pen. It would just be too expensive. So we will skip this one, but yeah, the next one I have from various brands. It's the Pigment Blue 75 Cobalt Zinc Silicate. I know a few brands which offer it, like Roman Schmal, and you can see Schminke Horadam and also Winsor Newton Professional offer it as well. I have a tube of those, and we will swatch. I think that's why I tapped on the Winsor Newton one, that I choose this one to swatch. It is a very strong granulating color, and it's very, very similar to an ultramarine blue from the hue. So that's why, if you are on a budget, I would skip this pigment and just use ultramarine blue, because it's very, very similar. But I think the cobalt granulates a lot more than the ultramarine blue. But yeah, they are very close in hue, so it's only for people like me, which are pigment nerds and collector. Or if you say you want a really, really strong ultramarine bluish color, then of course. But if you are on a budget, cobalt pigments are expensive. This is one which I personally say you can easily exchange for an ultramarine blue, which is a lot less expensive. So the next are the cobalt turquoises, and the first one is the PB 36. So we have already swatched it above as a darker cerulean blue, and some of the cobalt pigments like PB 36 can make different colors, which is depending on how they damn it. I forgot the word. Yeah, when you treat pigments differently, like heating it up or heating it longer up, some pigments can make different shades of color. So this is one of those. It makes a darker greenish turquoisey color, as you can see. There are different brands which offer it. I don't know why Winsor Newton, for example, changed it from a single pigment color, which was offered under Cobalt Turquoise Deep, to a two pigment mix. But yeah, you can still get a single pigment version from other brands. So the next is one of those colors as well, PB 28. We know it as our standard cobalt blue. Also makes very nice turquoise colors, and there are various brands offer the turquoise version. This one I have in my hand and we will swatch is from Roman Schmal. But I know also that White Nights and Rosa Gallery offer a turquoise PB 28 as well. It is a little touch more on the bluish side, in comparison to the standard cobalt teal or cobalt turquoise from other brands, which is made from the PG50 pigment, so pigment green 50. This is the next one we will swatch. Most brands use that pigment for their cobalt turquoise, but like I said, some companies use the PB28 as well. There's only a little difference between those two. Like I said, the PB28 is a little bit more on the bluish and the PG50 more on the greenish side, with one exception, because Schminke Horadam uses PG50 as well, but their version is a lot more like the PB28 version because it's more on the bluish side, which is totally surprised me. But yeah, I personally think they are all very beautiful. But if I have to choose one version, I would go with the slightly more greenish version because I like that hue a little bit more than the other. Yeah, I think if you are on a budget, then I would only buy one of those and not both colors because they are very close in hue. So I think one is totally fine. As you can see, I have various tubes for the PG50 version. We will swatch the Winsor Newton Professional one. It's one of my favorite versions. It's also one from the more greenish ones. Yeah, the PG50 pigment, like I said, some companies call it cobalt turquoise, like Schminke, or other brands like Daniel Smith call it cobalt teal. It is cobalt, titanium, nickel, zinc oxide. It is a very, very beautiful turquoise. Like all cobalt pigments, it's granulates, and I absolutely love to use this color, like the PB28 in a blue version as well. That are both colors I use a lot in my paintings. They are also very, very nice for mixing like all other cobalts as well. Because they are granulating, you can easily mix your own super granulating colors or colors with color separation effects. Okay, so that was the last of the cobalt turquoise pigments. We will go now to the cobalt green pigments. There are three different pigments which are used for cobalt greens. Like with all other color groups, you have companies offer a cobalt green from version A, B, or 3, or some you offer all three pigments. That varies from brand to brand. The first pigment we will use is the pigment green 19 cobalt zinc oxide, and it is offered from various brands, and here is one specialty because there is one company offering this pigment which I totally don't recommend to buy because it's really I don't know what did go wrong with that one. Yeah, I will show this in detail in our cobalt green video, and it's my personal recommendation to skip this company. But yeah, there are other companies like the one I use now. I use the Michael Harding pigment green 19 version, and that's a really, really nice and well done version. It's a super strongly granulating darker green, and I was very surprised by it, but I really like it. And it's, yeah, definitely one of the more stronger granulating ones. Very, very beautiful green. Yeah. So the next green is the pigment green 26 pigment, PG 26. It's also known as cobalt chrome oxide. And it's also used as turquoise from some brands. I will include that version in our cobalt green video, but most brands do offer it as a green. So you can see I have one tube of it from Winsor Newton Professional, which we will use now for swatching. And yeah, depending on which brand you are buying this PG26 from, it really is very different. So you can have 3 different brands offer it, and you get 3 completely different shades of green. And that's the reason why I will make a video for each color group, so that we can swatch all versions I have, including the versions on dot cards. I have a lot of dot cards, so that you can see that even if it's the same pigment, you can have different brands offer it as color X, pigment X, and you have 5 different companies and you have 5 different shades. So that's why we will make I will swatch every version I own in the color group videos. And also I will include a lot more information about the pigments and the pigment history in those videos. This video here, I just wanted to make as an overview what pigments are really in the Cobalt family, because some of those I only found while I have done the research. Some I already knew, some like the cerulean I only learned when I was into pigments a while. I didn't know for a long time that the ceruleans are also cobalt pigments, but somewhere in between I found out. So yeah, I thought that's the reason why I want to contain all different pigments, so that you can get all the information at once. So the next one I swatched now was PG50, which we already know from the cobalt teal, cobalt turquoise one. So it's also one of those pigments which can make completely different colors. You can get greens, but you can also get turquoises from it. And yeah, it's offered from different brands as well. And the green shade also varies from brand to brand a little bit. So the last pigment we will swatch now is PBK 27 Iron Cobalt Chromite Black. And it's a very highly granulating black, which I personally like a lot. But the only company I've found which offer it is the Korean company Mijello Mission Gold, and surprisingly, it is probably the least expensive cobalt pigment. So, yeah, only one company, but you can get it. So that are all the different pigments which are contained in the cobalt family. We have one yellow, two violet ones, a lot of blues, three turquoises, three greens, and two blacks, which are part of the Cobalt family. So I will show a little close-up for the color so that you can see the granulation better. You can see that some colors are granulates a lot more than others. And we will do, like I said, to each color group a video as well. I will do one video about yellow and black. I put them in one video because there isn't much companies offering a lot of companies offering those, so it is only a small part. We have one video about cobalt violet and cobalt violet hues. We have one video about the cobalt ceruleans, one video coming up for the cobalt blues, and one video for the cobalt turquoises, also one for the greens as well. So I will upload those when they are completely ready. Yes, we will swatch, like I said, in those videos, all the different versions from different companies, so that you can see how the hues of the pigments varies from brand to brand, and maybe it helps to decide for you which version you like the most. So you can say that maybe the cerulean blue from company X is for you the most beautiful one. So you don't have to buy a lot of different tubes or pans like me. So I hope this helps you in this part, as well as getting you more information about the pigments as well as the history of the pigments. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and will come back for the other ones as well. If you would give me a follow, then I would be very, very thankful. And yeah, I hope you got some new information, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching.